The bridge builder. The river had never been so high. Marcus stood at the edge of what used to be the crossing, the old wooden bridge his grandfather had built with his own hands, now swallowed by floodwaters that churned brown and angry beneath a gray November sky. 3 days of relentless rain had taken it. Along with it went his only route to town, his livelihood, and the last physical thing connecting him to the man who had raised him. He sat down in the mud and put his head in his hands. He had lost his job 6 months ago, then his savings. Then his wife had packed her things and driven away without a word, taillights disappearing into the dusk. And now this. He had moved to this small plot of land to start over, to grow something, to become something, and the river had laughed at his plans. "You can't win," the water seemed to say. "Just stop trying." That night, an old neighbor named Ruth came to his door with a pot of soup and a lantern. She was 81 years old, walked with a cane, and had survived more winters than Marcus had lived years. She set the soup on the table, looked him in the eye, and said something he didn't expect. "Good." He blinked. "Good." "The bridge is gone," she said, settling into a chair. "Good. That old thing was rotting for years. Now you can build something better." "I don't know how to build a bridge, Ruth." "Neither did your grandfather," she said simply, "until he did." She told him about the winter of 1959, how the same river had flooded, how the whole valley had been cut off, how people said it couldn't be crossed. His grandfather had spent 40 days building a new bridge. People had called him foolish. They said the water would just take it again. "Did it?" Marcus asked. Ruth smiled. "You drove across it every day for 30 years, didn't you?" Marcus didn't sleep much that night. He sat by the window, watching the river, and for the first time in months he prayed. Not politely, not carefully. He prayed the way a man prays when he has nothing left to lose, honestly, desperately, with trembling hands and wet eyes. "I don't understand what you're doing. I don't know why you keep letting things fall apart, but I'm still here, and I'm asking for help." He didn't hear a voice. The river didn't part, but something shifted, something quiet and deep, like soil turning over after a long freeze. A stillness settled into the room that hadn't been there before. He picked up his grandfather's old journal from the shelf. He had never read it. He opened it that night, and on the very first page in faded pencil were these words: "I have learned that God does not always calm the storm. Sometimes He simply gives you what you need to walk through it. Trust the process. Do the next right thing. He will honor faithfulness." The next morning, Marcus drove to the lumber yard in the next county, the long way around, 2 hours on back roads. He told the man at the counter what he needed. The man looked at him for a long moment and said, "You Marcus Webb, your grandfather built a bridge for my daddy in '59. We don't forget things like that around here." He gave Marcus a discount he hadn't asked for. 3 weeks later, a crew of 7 showed up at his property, men and women from the surrounding farms and towns who had heard what he was doing. They brought tools, food, and know-how. A retired engineer named Carl drove 4 hours to consult for free. "Why are you all doing this?" Marcus asked one evening as they gathered around a fire. An older farmer named James shrugged and smiled. "Because somebody once built a bridge for us." The new bridge was finished on a cold, clear December morning. It was stronger than the old one, wider, built with treated timber, anchored in concrete poured deep into the riverbed. It would not be easily moved. Marcus stood on it and looked out at the water. The river was calm now, glittering under a pale winter sun. He thought about everything he had lost: the job, the money, the marriage, the old bridge. And he thought about everything that had come in its place: Ruth's soup and wisdom, his grandfather's words, 7 neighbors who showed up without being asked, a community he didn't know he had. He hadn't just built a bridge. He had been rebuilt himself. He bowed his head and whispered 2 words into the cold morning air: "Thank you." Resilience isn't the absence of collapse. It's the willingness to rise after one, to trust that the flood which swept away what was old and rotting was making room for something stronger. And sometimes, the hands that help rebuild us are already reaching out. We just have to be willing in our most broken moments to look up and ask,